I also have the immense honor of introducing our last speakers for today. So we have got Drs. Nick Warner and Carl Rice. These two used to be psychiatrists in Wales, but they're not doing that anymore. So how did that happen, and what are they up to now? I'll let them tell their story.
Okay. So yes, Carl and I used to be doctors in Wales, and then we stopped. The reason we stopped is we did something you're all going to do one day, probably if you're lucky, and that's retire. How long does it take to train to be a doctor? It takes 5 years at medical school, and then, in my case, another 39 years still learning new stuff. How long does it take to unlearn it and to stop doing it and to stop thinking it? The current average length of retirement ceremony is about 22 minutes. That's with time to get yourself a piece of cold quiche. It's probably one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, is to retire. You're supposed to be out there having this wonderful time, and you are having a good time, and you know everything's set up for you, and a great family and things to do. But there's that little edge that's kind of missing, and there's a little voice that says, "Oh, you should still be helping people. That's what you were supposed to do. That's why you went into medicine in the first place." How are you going to say goodbye to never going to a medical meeting again? Never going again, Carl and I. Never not hearing any more patient stories. Not having the chance to be alongside them anymore. Not seeing any of your friends. There's a grief that has to be gone through. You're losing a part of your identity. And until you've lost that part of the identity, it's kind of difficult to build up who you're going to be, who you are now. And what do you do with all those neural connections, those ganglia, those neural circuits, which are to do with being a doctor? What do you do with the wisdom and the knowledge, most of which you've learnt from other people, and it's been passed down through generation after generation, centuries, back to medieval times, to the very source? What helped me, and I think helped Carl as well, was being able to take that essence of ourselves that was being a doctor and return that being to the very source itself. Carl.
Thanks, Nick. The lake there is called Lyn y Fan Fach, or at least that's how it sounds with a County Down accent. It's the little lake near the peak, and I'd like to tell you a story associated with that lake. Long ago, there lived a widow woman and her son, her only son, near the lake. And his job was to look after their cattle. And one day, he saw a young woman who appeared to be resting on the surface of the lake. She was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, and he was dumbstruck. But he managed to offer her the piece of bread that he had, and she refused it. And she made a derogatory comment about how hard the bread was, and she disappeared. So the next day, he asked his mother to undercook the bread. and he brought it to the lake. He offered it to the young woman, and again she refused it. She commented on how poor the cooking was. So the following day, he asked his mother to do her usual perfect bread. And he brought it to the lake, and eventually the young woman appeared, and he offered her the bread, and she accepted it. And it was exceedingly good bread, for she also agreed to marry him. But she said, "There's one condition. Were you to give me 3 blows without cause, the marriage would be over, and I would return to the lake." And he agreed with that, and they were married, and they went on to have 3 sons. But it wasn't happily ever after, because the 3 blows did happen. There was once when he gave her a push when she was late, when she was slow in going to a christening. Another time, she wept at a wedding, and he gave her a tap. And the final straw, he gave her a slap when she had a fit of laughter at a funeral. So she said, "That's it. You've broken the condition. I'm off." She took her belongings and she went back to the lake. Now you remember the 3 sons, they were distraught. And they spent all their time at the lake. And their mother visited them and comforted them and played with them. And as they grew older, she taught them the lore of the plants, the herbs, and the flowers. And they became skilled at using these to heal people. And people would come from far and near and avail of these healing skills. And a long line of eminent doctors descended from those sons. And there's some people would say that the healing powers of all the physicians in Wales derived from the Lady of the Lake of Lyn y Fan Fach.
So Carl and I went on a journey. And I will show you where the journey is. The lake is there in the secret location.
Oops.
It involved a climb. The lake itself is 450 meters above sea level. And we arrived at the lake on a cloudy day. And there was a strange sort of sense of welcome. We were to enter the lake. As we did so, the sun appeared and the waters seemed to warm. And we were both conscious that we were not alone. And it's to that third presence, to the Lady of the Lake, that we addressed these words. To the Lady of the Lake, in her sacred waters, we come with gratitude for the privilege of having served as doctors. We give thanks for the friends who we have worked alongside and for the patience and all they have taught us. Within these waters, we leave the suffering and the grief we have witnessed, the times of sorrow and frustration. And now we return to you your healing powers and wisdom, gifted from you and passed down through centuries and generations of healers. May your Spirit guard this knowledge, holding it for a future generation of doctors and healers who may enter this water. more. Thank you.
Thank you.